You're listening to Releasing Trauma, a survivor's podcast. And now here's your host, Tracy Osborne. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today, we are talking about pivoting from a trauma-filled past to a powerful woman or powerful life. With me today is Jenna Banks. She's the author of I Love Me More, How to Find Happiness and Success Through Love. And she has got a really interesting story. So according to her bio, I'm just going to read this from her bio. Against all odds, she pivoted from the self-loathing survivor of a traumatic childhood and a nearly fatal suicide to a fully empowered woman who knows her worth. And I know a lot of us know stories like that very intimately, especially for me, the self-loathing side of it. But what's really cool and has my entrepreneurship side peaked is she started a home-based business with a GED, $400 and a laptop, and sold it for $500,000. Hello. If it wasn't for the fact that this is a trauma podcast, I really want to know how she did that. But anyway, Jenna, welcome to the show. I'm going to have to have coffee or something with you now that we know that we're local.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm here in Georgia too. Lovely Georgia. It's starting to warm up. I'm really appreciating that.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, it was really cold.
I mean, one day I'm in shorts and a tank top and fixing to put the air conditioners in the windows, and the next day it's snowing. So
I know, right? It was snowing on Saturday. It was so weird. And then now it's all nice and warm again.
Yeah, exactly. And we wonder why we get so sick this time of year down here.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And on top of that, we've got the pollinating started.
Oh God. Oh my God. I am so not looking forward to that. I get such bad allergies. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We all do. We all get hit in my household with allergies too. So yeah, the April is horrible for us.
The worst.
Anyway, enough about that.
Anywho,
I want to talk about your story, and I want to know how you went from being a self-loathing survivor to a fully empowered woman. So tell me about that.
Sure. No, it wasn't an easy journey. My book is called How to Find Happiness and Success Through Self-Love. It's I Love Me More, How to Find Happiness and Success Through Self-Love. And, I think a lot of people, what I found through doing podcasts and talking to people who read the book and now that I'm out in the public eye, I get to talk to more people about this. And a lot of people, I feel like, think that self-care and self-love is the same thing. And while they are connected and related, and both are really important for your well-being, they aren't really the same thing. Self-care, I like to think of as external. External being, you go to get a massage, to relax, or you go exercise, right? To make your body more healthy. You feed yourself healthy food. You, go to the nail salon and get your nails done. So those things make you feel better, right? They make you feel healthier or better about yourself or whatever. And that's all great. But those are more like external things. Self-love is the deeper, more internal work. So it is sometimes even uncomfortable and even painful. And that's what I get into in the book. It's like the deeper stuff. So for example, you mentioned about my traumatic childhood. Yes, my journey was, from a place of no self-worth, no self-love, no self-value. I was raised in a very strict home. It was religious. And I ended up leaving that home at the age of 14 because I couldn't take the punishment, which was, I considered abusive. And it was very strict. And I felt like I was suffocating. I was dying a slow death inside to conform with whatever this religious belief was which wasn't who I was. And I had different ideas, but I wasn't allowed to express them. And, I couldn't be myself. And so I went to my other home where I was mentally abused. So I went from physical to mental. And that was just horrifying. Truly, the most damage was done to my soul at that home from the age of 14 to 16. I would come home and all the locks would be changed. I'm 14 years old out on the street at 14, coming from a very strict religious home to like a home where there's no love and no concern for my well-being at all. And, she didn't care where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. If I was with older boys who were using me for my body, she didn't care. I couldn't get a hold of her. This was before the days of cell phones. We'd have to call the home number and leave a message on the machine. And, and where could she get a hold of me? There was no cell phone. I was, where a transient, whoever would take me in while my mother decided she was not happy with me. And so, horrible abusive letters made me feel like I was unlovable, just unworthy, just a horrible, horrible person. And I ended up getting kicked out at 16. Again, like I can't tell you how many times I got kicked out, but that time was the last time. My neighbors felt really sorry for me, and they were moving like an hour away. We were in California at the time. And they asked my mother to sign over guardianship so they could take me away and hopefully give me a better life. And so she did it readily. I think she was happy about it, honestly, but I don't know how she was thinking because we never really talked about it. But so I went to go live with them. That didn't last long. I ended up bouncing around to different people's houses. Eventually, basically got out of high school, got my GED, was supporting myself at the age of 16. And so it didn't stop there. I mean, basically at that point I was numb, completely numb. I had no sense of feeling at all. I couldn't feel happy, sad, good, bad. I had no feelings. I had shut them off, I think, out of self-protectionism because I had been crying myself to sleep most nights and just trying to get love externally that wasn't coming my way. So I felt unlovable, unworthy, and unvalued. And I decided I didn't want to live anymore. And so I became suicidal, had multiple suicide attempts. The last one led me in hospital at age 17. I almost died. I had my stomach pumped. I was in a coma for many days, and I'm very grateful I survived that for sure. But, that's bottom of the barrel, no sense of self-worth, no sense of self-value. I ended up, getting pregnant, married at 19, divorced, single mom at 22. And then, I started really, I think, my self-love journey had actually started all those times that I was saying no to these things, not settling to these things, these environments that weren't making me happy, that were not serving me. Leaving my dad's home, I think, was the first time I started to feel my own power. I started to feel a little bit of my own worth, a little bit. My mom's home sent me backwards for sure. But, leaving my marriage, at a young age and realizing this isn't working, right? And of course, how could that relationship be healthy when I came from a very toxic situation? I hadn't done my healing. And so, just learning to then go, these are things aren't making me happy. Let me leave that. I've been brave enough and bold enough to walk away from family, walk away from these things that we're supposed to be super connected to and go, there's got to be a better way. And so every time I would do that, I'd feel a little more me, a little bit happier. And leaving my marriage of convenience, same thing. It was not a happy marriage. He was always putting me down. I didn't feel good. And so I just said, well, that's not working. Let me choose myself and make my happiness my priority. And I slowly learned over time that every time I would do that, I would have a better life. I'd have a happier life, a little more peace. And so ultimately I came to learn that making myself and my needs and my happiness my priority was definitely the best way to go. It wasn't selfish like we've been taught. I've been raised to self-sacrifice. I've been raised to please everybody else. I'd never been raised to think of what I thought about myself as the highest value. Never was I taught to look to myself for my own approval, my own validation, to love myself. No one ever taught me that. And so, but I had to learn that on my own. And slowly but surely, it allowed me to go, you know what? I love myself more than this job. this job isn't making me feel valued. I value myself more than this. I think I should be paid more. And if they, either it would result in a pay increase and a promotion, or I'd leave and go find something else. My energy is my control. My time is valuable. And I started to learn over time how much I valued my own time, my own energy. And the more I valued it, the more others valued it too. It's very interesting how that works. The more you value yourself, the more others value you. The more you love yourself, the more love you attract. It's actually the opposite of what we've been told. We've been taught to really think that self-love is selfish, it's narcissistic, it's conceited. But actually, it's the source of all things. If you want love from others, you have to love yourself first. First, you have to make yourself your highest priority. It's the opposite of how we've been raised. Then once you've filled up, you talked about powerful. I call it filling your power container. And I talk about this in my book. You want to fill up your power container first to a point of powerful, F-U-L-L. You want to be powerful before you're giving your power or your love to everybody else. You operate from a place of powerful first. It's the opposite of how we've been raised. We're taught to deplete, drain, give power away, no value. I'm worthless. I have no value. I'm going to give to you. I'm going to say yes, even though I want to say no. I'm going to let you cross this boundary because I don't respect myself and I don't even know my boundaries. Are there such a thing as boundaries? You can do whatever you want. I'm just trying to please you. And that's a drain of our power. We don't own our power. We just let everyone take it from us. When we fill up with our own love or our own power, we're at a place of powerful, and it attracts all these things to us. It's like a magnet. It's crazy. But anyway, that's what I talk about in the book is my journey, my own journey, because I'm not a PhD. I'm not a spiritual guru. I don't claim to be any of those things. I'm just an expert in me and what I had to go through for years of wrestling and manipulating my own energy to the point where I'm the best version of myself. And it all comes down to self-love.
Okay, first of all, that's an amazing story. And the fact that you were able to start figuring this out, it sounds like in your 20s,
Yep.
is incredible because most of us don't figure that out until at least our 40s.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pushing 50. I just turned 50. And
congratulations.
Thank you. About a month ago. And, and I'm just finally getting it after 10 years of working on it. So I got to give you kudos for figuring that out at such a young age, because so many of us don't. We just kind of struggle through life. That's it. Struggle through life, surviving.
That's why I had to write the book. That's why I was like, why wait until you have, some don't by the way, I've had some women who are in their 50s read the book and they're learning so much from it. So some don't learn that. I know people that are in their 80s that could probably use that lesson. So it's not a given that you're going to learn it. But I was like, what if young women had this information at an early enough age and could learn that early? Imagine what the world would be like for them.
Yep.
If they could just embrace their own worth and own value and realize you don't need to seek it from other people. You don't need to look for a man to make you happy. You can make yourself happy. You can pour your love on yourself and give all these things to yourself that we're programmed and conditioned to think that a man or a partner will provide for us. Happiness starts with you. You can be a whole person on your own through self-love. And then you attract all that other, you can attract people who can love you as much as you love you. That's the key. But you have to first do it.
And, for the longest time, the one thing that I could never wrap my head around was what it truly meant to love yourself. I couldn't grasp that concept at all. And, I tried the exercises, looking in the mirror. I love you. Yeah. And I'm just like, you look stupid. I feel like a dork, but, and they didn't, I tried everything. And it wasn't until I read, I was reading a book by Gabrielle Stone, And at the end of the book, she talks about, kind of what she discovered self-love was. And self-love was basically self-care. I know they're not the same thing, but it was self-love means you are doing for yourself those things that make you feel good, those things that make you happy, those things that benefit you, mm-hmm. and not, all the other stuff that doesn't benefit you at all, that doesn't make you feel good. And, when I read that, it finally clicked, and it was like, oh, it's that simple. And here I'm trying to make it overcomplicated. And I think we tend to do that.
Yeah.
We tend to overcomplicate things.
Yeah. But you know what? There's all these things that I call social norms that we compete with as well, right? It's what's expected of us as women. Also, like, I'm a single mom. My son's almost 28 now. And, we have these ideas and thoughts about what we think other people are thinking of us. Therefore, we should, as a mom, I don't want anyone to think I'm being a bad mom. So I'm going to behave this way, right? It's those social expectations, social norms. I said, F that, I'm going to, again, focus on what makes me feel good. Not in a selfish way. I feel like I was a very good mom. I gave my son a ton of attention, but I also was, we had a role reversal in my relationship with my ex. He was more of a stay-at-home dad. And I worked. I was the breadwinner. So, and that meant I sat in traffic, an hour to work, an hour back. I worked, 8 to 10 hour days. He was the one mostly taking him to school, picking him up, all, going to the school activities, although I did some of that too. But, the mom guilt would kick in.
Oh, yeah.
So the mom guilt kicks in thinking, well, God, if only I could give my son a different life and he'd have his mom at home. But that's all based on old programming, right? Oh, the mom should be home with the child. What's wrong with the dad being home with the kid? Nothing. It's just old conditioning. And I had to learn to let that go. But, the mom guilt is very real. And what I came to learn when researching for this book is something I want everyone to know. Everyone listening, I think it's really important to understand what guilt is. And I'm glad I didn't know this back then, but on my own, I figured out not to let guilt take a hold on me. What guilt is, it may make you think that you are doing something wrong, right? Like, oh, I did something wrong. I'm breaking a moral code of mine. So I gotta, to deal with the guilt, what you do is you try to fix it, right? You don't want to feel this guilt. It feels bad. It feels uncomfortable. So how can I fix this? And so you start doing these things to fix that guilt. Guilt is more often an indication that you're actually breaking a conditioned behavior. You're breaking a program. And guilt, what it does is it makes you get back in your lane. Guilt, actually, research shows guilt plagues women very differently than it plagues men. Mm-hmm. Men will feel guilty when they do something against themselves, like drinking too much, and then they feel really bad the next day, eating too much, and they're like, oh, why did I do that to myself? They'll feel that guilt. Not all, some men will have the Catholic guilt and stuff like that, but there's studies behind this. Women will feel guilt if we worry that we've hurt someone's feelings. And then we'll also turn that into shame and anger at ourselves. So then it becomes toxic guilt. And this is a woman thing mostly. And I've actually polled men personally, and this seems to be, yes, this is the case. So what happens with us women is we let this guilt drive our behavior. So this is one of the saboteurs of self-love, I call it, in the beginning of the book, because I wanted to address some of these things before we even get into what does it mean to love yourself. It's how do we sabotage loving ourselves? And guilt is one of those things. We let this guilt drive our behavior. And so we go right back into our conditioned lane of self-sacrificing, saying yes when we really want to say no, being the nice girl when someone's crossing our boundaries. And we're like, oh, this is making me feel uncomfortable, but I'm going to put on that smiley face because I don't want to hurt their feelings or make me look like a bitch. So I'm going to make them feel comfortable. And then we worry, us women do this. We worry about everyone else's feelings ahead of our own feelings. We place ourselves last on our list of concerns.
Oh, yeah. And more often than not, we're making up what we think they're feeling.
Yeah, we're making it up. Exactly. We're causing ourselves.
I've done that my whole life.
Me too. We make up in our minds, oh my God, they're probably feeling this and they're hating me and I got to fix this. And,
yep.
And we're just beating ourselves up with this guilt. We got to stop it because, I talk about our love is our power. As women, we are giving so much of our power away to these things that are so disempowering. And it's not helping us. It's not helping us be powerful women, FULL, powerful, full of our own love. It's draining us. And when we realize that it's something we actually can control, and we need to not give the power of our attention or our energy, because it's up to us. Mm-hmm. We can consciously choose to remove our attention from this guilt. It's not serving us. And it's holding us back as women, I believe. And it's certainly holding us back from loving ourselves more.
Oh, absolutely. And it holds us back from reaching our full potential, yes. Living our truth, being who we really should be, so much. And, I want to touch on something that you said earlier about when you come from a place of self-love and being full, you attract that. You attract those kind of people. And on top of that, you actually repel the negative stuff. Mm-hmm. So, it's almost like a colander. It's, you're keeping the good stuff inside and all that negative stuff is draining out the bottom.
You increased your vibration if you're into that stuff, but it's true. We're all energy. Energy is what surrounds us. Everything is energy. So when you fill up this power container, I love how you call what you refer to it. What was that? A colander?
A colander. What you drain like your spaghetti in.
Yeah. So if you fill up, I call it the power container. If you fill up your power container to PowerFULL and you make that your focus, that's the key, right? How do I feel today? And that's why I'm really big on journaling. I'm going to create a companion journal for the book because I think it's going to be a really great way for people to get used to practicing this as a daily habit. This is what I did just naturally, instinctively over the years. I'm just breaking it down for you as a system, mm-hmm. as a process, as a guide. But basically, you've got to tune into yourself every single day throughout your day and tune in. It's like you're looking at your gas tank. How much gas do I have in the tank right now? Can I go to here? Well, you got to feel like, how do I feel? Do I feel powerful? Or do I feel disempowered today? Do I feel drained? Do I feel moody? Do I feel irritable? Well, then backtrack. Why? What's causing that? Am I not practicing self-care? Am I not filling myself up? Am I not making myself happy? Am I not taking care of myself? Am I, is there someone draining me? Is there a relationship, a toxic relationship in my life that is just sucking the life out of me? Am I giving too much? Am I an overgiver? Because you've got to give to yourself. You got to fill up to PowerFULL and then give. And I'm not saying don't give and don't do these things for other people. I'm saying give to yourself first and then give to others. Because when you do it, you've got so much more to give. You can do it from a much higher vibration place. But at the same time, you're also, like you said, repelling that the negative people, as you raise your vibe, they're going to naturally start to drop off a little bit. And that's okay, because you can't entertain that kind of negativity in your life and expect to be powerful. It's not going to work. And I talk about this a lot in that all relationships are not all meant to last forever. There's an expiration date on many, many relationships. This includes friendships, lovers, boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wife, and sometimes even family members.
Yep. I was going to say, sometimes even your kids.
It could actually, thankfully it hasn't happened, but for me, but my son's almost 28, but yes, if it's toxic and you need to distance yourself, absolutely. I have family members who I look at the toxic relationship that has been the entire lifetime of this group. And it's nothing but resentment toxicity, negativity, never anything positive is said. I don't think there's anything wrong in saying, you know what, I'm just gonna, and I've got one of those family members who's like, you know what, I'm not connecting with them anymore. I'm done. And that's to serve their own soul, right? To not allow that toxicity in their life anymore. And they're better for it. They feel better. If you feel better, that's your guide to whether or not it's right or wrong for you. Again, going back to social norms, society expects certain things of us, and then we comply, and then we go, well, I'm expected to, have this person in my life. F that. No, if they don't deserve to be in your life, if they're bringing you down and not lifting you up, they don't need to be in your life. And it doesn't matter what relationship is. I had to cut off my father and my mother. They were both so toxic in my life. They caused so much damage that even just the thought of them calling caused me so much anxiety and pain and grief, and would cause me to go back into my old trauma again every time. No, I choose me, and I, love myself too much to allow that in my life anymore. And I had to make that decision. I love me more than that. That's not allowed in my life anymore.
Yeah, I had to, I kept my mom at arm's length. I didn't completely cut her off, but I kept her at arm's length right up until she died, because she was just so toxic and full of anger and resentment for her own trauma issues from her childhood.
Which is why healing the trauma is so important. It's so important. Tracy, I talk about this in the book too, and I'm glad you bring it up. Healing your trauma. I didn't go through this till later in life. I didn't know. Here I'd gone through all this, trauma as a child. And I thought that, and a young adult. And I thought that by simply surviving it and thriving in the external world, like being successful in business and whatever, and to all external appearances seeming like I had my ish together, that I did fine, right? Why would I need to go back and do anything with all that? But come to find out that trauma, if you don't heal it, it'll impact everything. It'll impact your relationships. It'll impact how you see the world. You can be triggered. Someone could do something and trigger an old wound, and you would have no idea. Here I thought, and for all the ladies listening, I don't know if you are in a position like I was, and I want to share this with you just because it was so eye-opening for me. And I went through this later in life. I always thought the problem with my toxic relationships was with the other person, right? It was them bringing that, well, they were not communicating with me for a week, and it made me feel XYZ. And so I lashed out and whatever. And like, we feel justified, right? We feel justified in, well, it's me, I'm the victim, blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is they could be triggering old trauma, and that could be the problem. So I didn't know I had abandonment issues, old abandonment wounds. I didn't know that I had, that I felt responsible for everything. If someone had any kind of wound in them, and they would share it with me, now I felt responsible for them.
Yep.
And that took it all the way into my relationship. So if my partner had any old wounds, I was like, now I'm the responsible one. That was because I was the oldest of 5, and I felt responsible for my younger siblings when they were being spanked, and I'd hear their cries of pain, and I would suffer along with them. And then I felt responsible for taking care of them and making things better. And I took that into adulthood. We take for granted the things that we went through as young children and the impressions that they make on our mind. We don't understand how strong those impressions are. And then we take them into adulthood, and then we form these patterns that are also forming these toxic relationship patterns in our own lives. And we have to heal those things if we want to stop attracting that.
Absolutely. My 26-year-old has, ever since, probably 5th grade, has had issues with school, with her teachers. It was always, my teacher doesn't like me. My teacher doesn't like me. These kids don't like me. Nobody likes me. Everybody, and all throughout her growing up, I was like, Tamika, if everybody doesn't like you, they're not the problem. You need to look inside and see, why are you attracting all these people who don't like you? And it wasn't that they don't like her. It was that she didn't like herself, and therefore
she didn't like herself.
Them.
Yeah.
And that came from her own, issues with her dad abandoning her and that kind of thing. So it's, if you find yourself in a position where you're attracting the same kind of person over and over and over and over again, the common denominator is you.
Yes. That's a good point. That's a good point.
It's time to look inside and see, okay, why am I attracting the scum of the earth? I don't want to be this magnet anymore.
Yeah. And we want to think that it's them, but it really is us. And so we have to go in and heal that. And how do you do that? Well, there are books. You can do self-help. I'm a big self-help person. Mastin Kipp is a big trauma expert. He has a book out called Claim Your Power, but he does this trauma healing. That's his focus. So Claim Your Power was really cool. And that has these journaling exercises, and you could uncover some of these old trauma wounds yourself. Yep. But healing it, that's a whole journey. I mean, I also read The Power of Now, and Eckhart Tolle talks about our energy field and how we have these blockages in there. It could be just old past trauma. For me, when, actually, I just did a podcast with this amazing man called Danny Morrill, and he is an awakening guide. And we talked about this whole thing where he was working with somebody who had this pain in his hip area. And he was running away. There was a song that was playing, and it was very introspective, and he felt this negative reaction to it and wanted to turn. He didn't want to listen to it. And when he did this healing session with Danny, and heard the song, and then also he realized he went through this situation where he went into the pain. He felt the pain of whatever the trauma was, felt it, let whatever happened come out, right? Because you might feel like bawling. You might feel angry. You might feel, whatever you feel, you got to be willing to face that discomfort. And that's why I talk a lot about how self-love can be uncomfortable and sometimes even painful to go through. If you want to heal, you got to be willing to go through that. And once you go through it and you release it, all it is energy that wants to be released. Come to find out, when he released all this energy and actually went through and just let himself feel those feelings that he'd been hiding from and pushing down for years and years and years, it comes out, and the pain in his hip went away. That's where that energy was sitting, was in his hip. Yep. So, whatever you got to do, to get there. I also, there's therapy, obviously, there's relationship coaching, which was huge for me. Didn't help me heal the trauma, but it helped me uncover the trauma and know that, oh my God, there's stuff there. There's spiritual practices. I mean, there's all kinds of ways, but whatever it is, you got to, you can go through it on your own, or you can go through it with somebody. But it's, again, one of the biggest acts of self-love you can give to yourself is to give yourself that ability to heal your trauma, because your life will be so much better and different after that.
Absolutely. Well, Jenna, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today. This has been incredible.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on, Tracy. I appreciate it. Absolutely. Listeners, I will have all of Jenna's contact information down in the show notes, link to her book, all of that. Just go to releasingtraumapodcast.com, pull up Jenna's episode, and it will all be there for you. If you are listening from one of our or your favorite podcast app, be sure to give us a like and a follow, and we will talk to you in the next show. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure you hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a show. Be sure to check us out on our new socials on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.